Hello everyone, this is Rick Passek, the Fly Fishing Fanatic, and welcome to another edition of On the Bench with Sport Fishing on the Fly. Today we're going to be tying a little English style grasshopper slash crane fly in the heat of the summer when the fish are taking them off the banks of rivers or even on the banks of lakes, the lakes that like especially lakes like Tonquah and things like that here in British Columbia, where there's grass right up to the edge of the lakes. Hoppers and crane flies will fall in and the trout will feed on them. So it's a British style, so it's a little bit different than what we see here for hoppers, but these are meant to be just subsurface, like drowned crane flies or drowned hoppers. So alrighty, so starting in the vise today, we have a Arex FW581 in a size 10. For the thread, I'm going to be using some Semperfli Classic waxed in wood duck. I use wood duck and I use olive, depending on the scheme I'm going for here. For the body, I'm going to be using my favorite dubbing in the world, Hen's Hair Dubbing Plus, in that green, olive green right here. For the rib, I'm going to be using a little bit of the Semperfli Hollow Tinsel in copper. For the legs, I'm going to be using some Semperfli knotted pheasant tail legs. They're pre-knotted to come like this. I'm not going to do that myself. So for the, let's call it the thorax area, I'm going to be using a little bit of CDC from Hen's. It's a light olive. Olive works as well. And then up at the collar, I'm going to be using a little bit of mallard flank dyed wood duck. And I think that's it. So let's get her going. It's a little bit of a longer tie, not huge long, but a little longer. So just put my thread on, like always. Cut that off. Just come forward here a bit. Just going to put on my hollow tinsel. The only reason I come forward is just for to keep the body symmetrical. It really doesn't matter on this one that much because you will it's going to be dubbed anyway, dubbed body, so you're not really going to see if it's a little bit thicker from the thread. So okay, just come back to there. Now I just take a little bit of my wax, put some wax on there, a little bit of that dubbing, and I want to do not an overly loose, but not a tight dub here, about like that. And then just bring that forward. Just get that started, and then I can tighten it up just a little bit. I want it a bit hairy. This one, it's a tad more. I want to leave plenty of space at the front for my collar section that I'm going to be doing, but I do want a bit of a taper. I want this to be a bit thicker here. Okay, counterclockwise, I just bring my one turn at the tail end and then bring one in, 2, 3. That's all I want. This is more of just an attraction, is the tinsel. It really does help with the segmentation, but more than anything, it's just a, hey, what's that, right? Attraction. So a little bit of sparkle. Take my little lollipop with a little bit of Velcro on it. Just rough that up a bit, make it buggy. That's it. Don't go crazy. Just want it a little bit buggy. Okay. So now I'm going to do a dubbing loop. Come right back to where I stopped with the dubbing there. I'm going to put my dubbing spinner on there. Come on. There you go. You can cooperate. Now I've already prepared some CDC. So I've taken 2 CDC feathers, stacked them on top of each other, put them into my clamp and cut them just so I can put them into my loop here. Let that go. And then just slowly, just give that slowly a turn. Oh, I just dropped it out. And of course, that happens. Whatever. That was because my dubbing spinner kind of came apart. I'm actually going to use my other dubbing spinner because this one, for some reason, lately, it's one of those auto spinners, and it's been coming apart on me easy. So I'm just going to go with the old classic, which is kind of what I prefer anyway, just the old classic style, right? So these are some good things to learn when you're tying, is that, you know, things happen, problems happen. So it's just how you react to them and how you're able to come back from it, right? And how you're able to just repair the damage that you've done or lack of, right? So that time it fell out. So now I'm just taking some more feathers and I'm just going to stroke them back like this to expose them. And then I'll put the two together on the table down here. I can't do this up in the picture, unfortunately, and then I just stack this two shafts together as best I can, like this. Okay, and then I'm going to use my clamp again and just clamp those fibers like that. All right, and then I'll cut that. Cut that off the stem. So there we go. So back to where we were. Now, sometimes it does help if you add a little bit of wax, but I don't like using wax if I can help it with CDC. I find that it can make it stick together. So now I'm pinching the line, the thread, and I'm spinning. And then when I let go, that'll slowly there spin up. Okay, now I can really spin it up. Now I can't go crazy because this is only classic wax. It's not a GSP or a nano silk, right? So not too worried about that little piece that was caught there. So now all I'm doing is I'm just really tight touching wraps to each other. With the next one touching that one touching that one, all the way forward. And then I'm going to go back over top of that a bit. Okay, I want this stuff slicked back. Okay, so now at this point, you can put the legs on before this stuff, or you can put the legs on after. I personally like putting the legs on after. So now I'm going to take two or three off of here. And I'm not really worried if they're kind of going all over the place like this, because it really doesn't matter. And I want it about just past the bend of the hook is where I want these to lay. So we'll put in a few wraps there. Looks pretty good. I'll grab three more because that's how many I had there. So if you put three on, put three on the other side. If you put four on, put four on the other side. Same here. I want it about the length of the bend. Tie that on, have a look. Yeah, nice and buggy. That's good. Perfect. That's how I want it. Nice and buggy like that. Okay. So now that those are on, I'll just give it a turn so you guys can see it's kind of splayed all out. It's exactly what I want. So now that there's there, then I'll come back over top there. And now I'm going to grab my feather, my wood duck here, mallard flank, and just going to tie this in by the tip. Just separating this so I can get a nice tie-in point there. Then tie that in all the way to the front. And then I will nip off that mallard flank so it's not in the eye. Okay, and I'll take my hackle plier. Make sure all this material is backwards. The tip broke there, so I'll just have to retie it. Not a big deal. Make sure all your material when you're going is definitely it's facing backwards, because you want this to kind of lay into the CDC. try that again. Okay. That's the fun thing about doing videos. Sometimes, just like that, this feather is not happy. So I'm going to grab a different feather. One seems to be a bit brittle. But that's the fun thing about doing these videos. Sometimes you just run into problems. And I like leaving my mistakes in to my videos that I do because it's sometimes you just make mistakes, right? And you just got to learn how to fix those mistakes. So I just made another mistake there. I unwound too much and a couple of them fell out of the hopper legs. So I'm going to put those back in. 2 new ones. It's not a huge deal. It's a nice thing with tying. You can always fix things. So let's start that again. Let's try a different feather this time. That one seemed to be brittle. And that happens. Sometimes you just don't have the best material. Or in a pack even, like this pack could be phenomenal, but 1 or 2 feathers, right, are not very good and causes issues. So, and I can tell you that for these smaller flies, these packages, if you take a look, most of these feathers are huge, right? They're just massive. They'd be like the palmering them like I'm doing, they'd end up back here, like way back. So it's not what you want, obviously. So trying to find the right feathers in the pack on top of it, right? And often what I'll do, because I don't want too much here, is I'll just tear off the one side. I just tear off this one side, the material off the one side here, because I don't want it too thick, right? I don't want this collar too thick. You want to be able to see that body through it. So again, so now 1, 2, back up, tie that down. Not too worried that a little bit of that core is showing there. Really doesn't bother me because I'm going to cover that now. So take my brush, just brush those feathers to make sure they're apart. Sometimes they have a little bit of an waxy, oily substance on them, so they'll stick together. So now I'm taking some more of that same green that I used for the body. This might be a little too much. I'm just going to pop that off. And then bring that forward. I want a decent little collar of dubbing here. Okay, I don't whip finish it yet because I'm going to pull that dubbing out and have it straight back, and I just want to make sure that it does what I want before I finish up. Make a head. So there. Like I said, sometimes I'll use green, sometimes I'll use the brown wood duck here. For this one, I like the wood duck, even though it's got a little bit of a green head here with that dubbing. I just really like having that this brown. And that's that. Now I'm just gonna brush it out, make sure it's all nice and buggy. Usually I like brushing it forward. Try not to bring the legs forward, but it just makes it nice and buggy. Now, so there's the finished product. Now, if I want to, sometimes what I'll do is I'll go in here and I'll just go underneath. I'll do it on this one just so you guys can see. And I'll just nip off a few of those fibers from the mallard flank on the bottom side. It just helps expose the body. So now you can see the body from underneath, but it's still nice and buggy, right? Really buggy fly. And like I said, when this gets wet, this with the help of the CDC, it'll float a bit. Put a little bit of gink on it or whatever to help it float even more. But I like having these right subsurface. Like sometimes I'll even fish these on a type 1 sink tip, but like a short little 3-foot sink tip, and just let this go. In the rivers, I'll swing this on a dry. In lakes, I'll put this on like a type 1 sink tip and just let it go down that like 6 inches or so, and then just slowly strip it in. So really deadly pattern at times, especially in the heat of summer. So hope you guys enjoyed that one. And thanks for tuning in to another edition of On the Bench, Sport Fishing on the Fly. Signs, everyone.